Hi, Anne Marie.
Hi, Kino. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you. And how about yourself?
Everything's great. The sun's shining. It's only minus 14 degrees here. Canadians are
Wow.
obsessed with the weather this time of year. It's been a rough
Yeah,
January, and up till today, it's been lots of snow.
yes. And how are you holding up, like with the snow? Do you love it?
It's a little bit excessive this year. Normally, I don't mind it, but I have snowbanks at the end of the driveway that are like 7 feet tall. So that's a little bit much for us this time of year.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I guess, here in South Africa, we don't experience snow as much as
Mm.
Canada. There's only one specific area in South Africa, which is called the Drakensberg. Yeah, there is snow there, but other than that, not really. Sorry. I would love to experience it, yeah, but in the future to come. So
Yeah.
I don't get this wrong and make a complete idiot of myself. Can you please pronounce your surname for me again?
Yes, it's Mawhiney, and I've noticed I put a typo in my title, and I want to take responsibility for that. Um,
That's no problem. We'll get it right in the description.
thank you.
Yeah. So, Emery, thank you so much for joining me on the show today and tonight because we're in two different time zones. It's a pleasure to have you here. And once again, thank you for being so patient. I know we had to delay it for some time, and
Mm.
I truly have gratitude that you are understanding. So, at least here we are, and we can finally get to learn about you and your life story, your work, your writing. So let's jump straight into it. And what we love to do on the show is build a relationship with the creator themselves. It's not
Okay.
a show where a creator comes on, just talks about their book, um, just to gain sales. Like we don't live in that era anymore. And so I like, the mandate for this show was let's build that personal, intimate relationship with the author themselves because, that's what readers want you know, that sort of like mutual understanding, with each other. I'm sure you get what I'm saying because when you write your book, your material, which is no different to a musician, there's a specific audience that you want to connect with because there's that hidden message, that you want to share with them. But we'll get to all of that. So, Anne Marie, you decided for yourself you wanted to be an author at 8 years old. So let's
That's
start
right.
there. I'm interested about that. Such a young age, you already knew what you wanted to do, which is very hard to get. I mean, I didn't even know what I wanted to do at 8. I knew I was passionate about certain things, but I really didn't put it down to, hey, I want to do this. So let's start there. Let's start at 8 years old. You decided you wanted to be an author. Let's work our way up to you becoming a social worker, university professor, and now a successful author.
Okay, so we lived in a small mining community in northern Ontario. My dad was the school principal. My mom had been a teacher, and in that era, women lost their job once they got married, so she was a homemaker. And I took to reading at a very early age and just loved the characters. I was into a whole series of children's books. And one day I turned to my parents and said, I want to be a writer when I grow up. And then I said, but I don't see any writers that are from where I'm from, so I don't know if I'll be able to do that. And as it turned out, my father's aunt married a man who lived in Northern Ontario, who was a ghostwriter for the series of books, children's books that I liked reading. And he reassured me that you can be anything that you want and you can go as far as you want with your writing. I wrote the darkest poetry when I was 8 to 10 years old. I have a couple of examples. I don't have them here, but I sounded like I was just so burdened with life at that age. And then in high school, there were lots of assignments for writing and short stories. And in grade 10, we had to write a 3,000 word short story. And at the end of it, I got a good grade. I didn't think too much about that. I figured she was an easy marker. Turns out she wasn't. And she encouraged me to pursue writing. But in my dad's role as an educational leader, he would see students from homes that had trouble supporting the family, living in dire poverty, struggling with the winters that we had to even survive. And one time he told us a story without names of a young 8 year old boy who had to burn books to keep the trailer that they lived in warm uh, in like minus 30-degree weather. So he and his siblings and mom could survive after the father had abandoned him. And I said, what happened to the boy? And my dad said, well, we let him, we arranged for an income for the mom. We got heat into the oil drum, and he comes to school to sleep because you can't learn when you're in survival mode. And that probably shifted my life. And I decided I wanted to become a social worker that actually transformed lives rather than kind of being the bureaucratic kind of social worker. So I did my undergrad. I worked for a couple of years in mental health. Um, and then I went and did my master's and worked for a few more years and then was recruited to become a professor. I was pretty young. Um, and one of the things I had observed in my practice was how ill equipped we were to work with people from other places and with our First Nations people. Our First Nations people are the original people of the land here. And where I live, um, there's a territory called the Robinson Huron Treaty Area. Um, and so we had what was then called the Native Study Department. And I approached people there saying, I think we need help in how to do work across cultures better. And one of the profs turned to me and said, is this going to be another white idea? Or can we do something different? I was a little bit taken aback, but I thought it was reasonable. And I said, you're the experts. I'm not. That's why I'm here. And we wound up um, with the 21 communities around here, First Nations, putting together a community based consultation process because the elders told us they wanted this to be a program that met all the mainstream requirements to be accredited, but they wanted their own ways of healing and ceremony and sort of private things to be part of the program. So there's land-based teaching, there's cultural teaching, and through the 4 or 5 year process, they were very inclusive of me in the planning and the talking and the conceptualization, because my job was going to be to bring a very different form of education into the university. So I had to be talking it up. I had to kind of um, put it to the way that things are done at the university while respecting the uniqueness. And at the time, we had a university president who was an international distance ed expert, and he was totally keen with this. He said, whatever you need, just ask. So my role then, after the program was approved in the late 80s, was to kind of step back and leave space for the Indigenous people to take it over and build it. And I kept a relationship with them because they appreciated my role in making the program happen. But I would have to say that was the highlight of my career. And we've graduated students for almost 40 years now. Yeah. And our First Nations back then were like economic disasters, parceled on skimpy land where they couldn't do much. Um, a lot of social issues coming out of histories of white policies that put them behind with trauma and intergenerational trauma. And the goal of this whole program was to kind of heal the people and to work with them. And the graduates had a mission to do that in various different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. There's so much to unpack, in the few minutes that you have spoken. There's so much to unpack there. Then you first started this program versus 2026. Has the program gotten stronger?
Oh, yes.
How you visioned it, when you started, is that vision still alive or has it died off as new people came on board?
So it wasn't my vision. The program that was accepted was the vision of the communities. They developed what had to go into it, with me saying what the mainstream part that they wanted could look like. But my vision of social work practice being activist and culturally connected is well alive. It's phenomenal. We hired all First Nations people. People assumed I would teach in it. I said, no, I don't have the knowledge. I don't have the culture. Um, I'm not going away and abandoning. We keep connected if you need anything. But the vision of the communities is very alive. Students who could be mainstream students as well as First Nations, Métis, or Inuit students are in the same classroom, and they do a lot of teachings on the land because that's where those teachings belong. It has shifted from something over the almost 40 years. It certainly has changed, but times have changed and the communities have changed as well. So the people who are connected with the communities are the ones that are forming the changes. And the university has maintained a lot of pride with this partnership with the First Nations communities of this territory, with students coming from other parts as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's no doubt that you're really passionate about social work. There's no doubt at all. So, I'm going to ask a question, right? Let's step out of the community. And when we look at the world today, the world seems so divided and culturally disconnected. How does it make you feel currently, right now in 2026? And a question to ask, which, look, not many people have the answer to it, not even me. What do you suggest needs to happen to
Okay,
fix that?
that's a big question, and it's on my mind all the time. And just to link, we're not at the author stage, but what I've been seeing in the world since COVID is what motivates me to write. Um, the current state of the world, in my opinion, is going backwards um, in a devastating way. Um, I long for um, a world where everybody thrives. There's no kind of hierarchy to um, identities of all sorts of kinds. Everybody's accepted, everybody participates, everybody can thrive. And we're moving so far away from that. Um, I find it very difficult to even think about how to shift that into a trajectory um, that fits the way I would like things to be. I think um, there's a lot of people all over the world that want to resist what we're seeing happen. Um, and I think we really need to step up, even though it's frightening. Um, when we think about the world wars, for instance, there are all kinds of underground things happening that were invisible that we hear about now or hear about after the wars. And I really think we need to be forming allies, not only sort of the economic allies that our leaders are doing, um, but also other ways of supporting across our countries and across our nations. And I think, unlike, say, the 60s and 70s and onward until recently, when protest was accepted, and it was peaceful protest in North America, that was sort of the thing. Um, I think that there are so many forces now even trying to suppress the right to protest
Hmm.
that we may have to get creative and look at other ways. Um, I mean, I long for them to be peaceful, but to resist and to push a way forward, um, so that we can reverse things. I mean, there's a political agenda, there's an economic agenda, and there's a horrible social agenda coming into visibility again that was probably there all the way along, but they kept invisible for a while. And it's shocking in a way to see how flagrant it is these days. But I think it was always there, sort of behind closed doors.
Yeah, yeah.
I,
It's definitely an agenda. There's no
yeah,
doubt about that. Yeah. No, it's always
Yeah.
been an agenda, Whenever I talk to people about it on another show that I actually co-host, where we go deep into these topics, I keep mentioning that there's always been an agenda.
Yes.
COVID wasn't something that just stopped by, said hello, and moved on. It was a starting point. Life has not been normal since then if you have really been awake in the world that we are living in. You mentioned about stepping up, you know, to injustice in the world. But now we see that the moment you step up, as you said, you get suppressed. And now we're heading towards civil war that's happening in so many nations across the
Yes.
country, and at different levels. And it's sad to see. I mean, the division, because we're not thinking for ourselves, has just gotten out of control. And you mentioned a key word there: creativity. We need to be creative in our approach, which once again is something I said several weeks ago when we were
Right.
talking to you know wonderful girls who are from Afghanistan, and what's happening there with the Taliban government, and how their education and rights have been suppressed. And because of donations from the US and Canada, organizations in the US and Canada, they've managed to get an education, and now they slowly getting out of the country. And then we brought up what's happened in Iran and the protesting that's going on there, because we were just like, in the Middle East
Mhm.
in this conversation. And I never used the word creativity, but I said that people need to look at a better way of doing it, be more strategic about it, because I utilize that same mentality in my life. Hence why I'm doing the podcast from where I am today, because I also do a lot of social humanitarian work. I've got my own NGO and a podcast called Creating Team Human that I co-host with the North of from Canada, to actually eliminate tribalism and bring the world together more than apart. So we do a lot of this work. And by me being strategic about how I go about, fighting certain battles, it takes longer. It can become more frustrating, more daunting, and you sit around waiting, hoping that this, chess piece is going to be it. But at the end of that, there's light, and you see it now getting into the
Yes.
ocean, versus me just going up to these people who are doing so much wrong and fighting, because the next thing you know, within a second, I could be shot dead. So
Yes,
who wins?
exactly.
You know? Yeah.
Exactly. And like it's closer to home, um, more and more all over the world. It's not something from Canada that happens out there. I mean, we had a devastating shooting yesterday here, out in BC. Um, it wasn't about political issues, but it was about somebody in distress and uh, went into the school. Um, but it's everywhere, and it's like the old rules of when you would get violent are being thrown out of the window by the people who are supposed to be holding to the rules.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it's sad, really sad. But look, I mean, um, when I talk to social workers such as yourself, humanitarians, people who are passionate about people and change in a positive way, you know, all we can conclude is that we can't change the world overnight. That's never going to happen. We don't even know whether what we do is going to make any big difference in our lifetime. But as long as we make those small moves that leads to the bigger, mandate, that's all that matters. If I go to bed tonight knowing, hey, I did this today, it was small, but it was something and I did my best, like wholeheartedly, my heart was in it, you know, that should be enough for us with our work, because at times, the frustration hits so many people around the world that, do the same work as you, feel the same as you, the frustration hits, like, and it's, could I have done better? Can I do better? And I'm like, cool down, relax. You've done your best. And tomorrow morning you wake up again and you do your best. And we just see what happens next. That's all we can do.
And to build forests, we have to plant seeds. And the forest will come and it'll be 30, 40 years from now. And I think we have to deal with the present, but we also have to build for the future the way we hope it will be for our children, grandchildren, great grandchildren. Sudbury, the community where I live, has been devastated by mining pollution. And 50 years ago, a whole community, everybody in the community got on board with turning that around. And it's called the Regreening Project. And it is known in environmental areas all over the world for Sudbury. Jane Goodall put it in her Reasons to Hope documentary as one case study. And that's what's taught me that if we had wanted to change Sudbury in 5 years, it was mission impossible. Our lakes were dead. There were like hardly any vegetation. But the scientists urged that we're going to help Mother Nature and we're going to take a long view. And there's still work to be done here. And I think this, let's deal bit by bit, everybody doing something that leads to where we want to go. That's all any one individual can do. But if everybody in the movement joins in, it becomes a bigger opportunity and chance that the change will happen.
Yeah, well said. Well said. I couldn't agree more. Thank you. Thank you. We can only deal with what's in front of us, and we can only deal with life 1 second at a time.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. So let's jump now to your writing career and your book, Fugitive Roofs. So how did now you finally decide, hey, okay, you mentioned, COVID motivated you to start writing. So what was the build up to that now and to the book? And you can also briefly explain what is the book about.
If you don't mind, I'd like to talk about my first book briefly. It's called Spindrifts because it's capturing what we've been talking about. In COVID, the first lockdown, we weren't even sure initially if it was safe to be outside. And I started to get got a little bit squirrely. I was anxious and worried and, needed to move around, couldn't go for a walk yet. And I thought, I have to go inside my head. So I took out a laptop that I thought I would use, but I hadn't. And I started to write. I thought I'd be journaling, but in fact, what happened was the first line of Spindrifts, which is this book. And it was when she awoke, it was with such joy in her heart, which was what I was longing for in such a hopeless situation. And so what I did was I built the world I wanted to see. I never would have dreamt that I would have wound up in science fiction fantasy, but it is a world that's saving Earth after 2 disastrous catastrophes that killed off 60% of the world, changed the economic political system, changed social values, and every single person except a group of activists who wanted to go back to the old capitalist ways, they're the ones who got locked up. Every single person contributes to the Earth Project, and therefore every single person has equal value. So there's total inclusion, except for the bunch that are trying to change it. There's respect. You never comment on somebody's appearance or how they look or, any kind of physical comment. That is just not something that happens. And the saving Earth over the long term is a continuation of Sudbury's re-greening project, although the book could be anywhere in the world. And it's an intergenerational family, multiracial family. You can't talk about inclusion if it's an all white family.
Yeah.
And I struggled with that as a white author, daring to write about um, various characters who had different races. But I thought, I can't do this book the way I want to do it if everybody's like me. So that's Spindrifts. The second book is 20 years after, when our grandchildren told me I had to write another one. And fugitive, what with a dragon in it, which wasn't the world I had built. That was a challenge. And then Fugitive Riffs. I thought after I did the duology, I was done. And then this story kind of came to me. It's not part of the other two. It starts in contemporary times out in British Columbia, where four graduating teens come together, and they're kind of shocked to discover that their teachers think they could be in a debate club, because that doesn't sound too cool. And they're very different kids. But over time, each one of them faces a life-changing crisis that changes their whole life's journey. There's a huge climate change disaster that changes maybe the whole world, but certainly things out west in Canada. And through all this, each of the four characters develops projects in their new path that bring value and meaning to people who have been vulnerable and set aside in our society. So there's unhoused people that they're working with. There's people with disability that they're working with. And there's people with mental health issues that they're dealing with. And all of my books have those kinds of themes in them. How do
Yeah.
you deal with the way our world is now in a futuristic way that brings more people into the center rather than on the fringes?
Mm, mm, mm. Yeah, yes. I mean, I picked up, how all your books are linked. At the start of the show, we were talking about, connecting with an audience and who that audience, also maybe
Yeah.
because everybody has a specific audience, but your audience right now seems to be the entire world, to
Let's hope.
to get your book to really start thinking and reflecting on what we're doing and what's happening, around the
Exactly.
world. Yeah. Yeah. So that for me, once again, as I said at the start of the show, every creator has a hidden message. And now that we've learned about you, your history, and your passion for social work, now linked to your books, that is your hidden message. This is your
Yes.
legacy, to the world, that look, I've played my part to make this place better. So
Thank you.
help me.
Yeah. Um,
Mm.
it is my message, and people will read my books, and I'm hoping it makes them think. Certainly, some people won't like what I've written, but that makes them think too. It makes them think, why don't I like it? And the people who do like it, I hope become inspired by realizing you can do one small thing that transforms lives in a very good way. I feel that I have that in a good way now. 10 years ago, we would have said transformed lives, and we would know it's in a good way. But given the events lately, we can't count on that.
Yeah, yeah. I like what you said there. The people that don't like will also end up thinking, it's like reverse psychology, you
Yeah.
know. I love that. I love it. That's good. That's good. I love that you put something like that in the book.
Yes, and I'm very conscious of it. I kind of fumbled with the first book. I had been an academic writer for almost 40 years. It's a total different way of writing. I had abandoned my creative writing for 60 years. And um, as a result, the first draft of it was painful for my friends to read because it came across like an academic paper. And I was a bit crushed by their feedback, but thank heavens for them, because my writing has gone back to the creative way. And even the first book, I've had lots of really very positive comments about one Canadian author who became published at the same time I did in 2021 said, "This is the world I want to live in." It's the world I want to live in, and he and I, communicate quite regularly around our writing and our books. Um, and so I write books about worlds that I'd like to live in. I was talking about how I want people to think about the books, um, and react to the books, and that I hope that people would understand, um, that every small thing that each of them can do would help make changes in the long term, and that in Fugitive Riffs, each of the four characters develops a way after their big crisis where they can help people transform their lives and move away from the margins into the center. Um, and I'm hoping that will inspire people that they can do similar things by reaching out and supporting a cause or an issue or people who are in dire circumstances. And every bit that moves towards a world built on humanity, kindness, hope, and protecting our planet um, is a piece of the whole puzzle that can only move us forward in a good way.
Wow. Wow. That's a clap. Wow. Like you have inspired me because I have my days where I feel like I want to give up. But when I listen to someone like you and what you have to say, that motivates me to keep going. So thank you
Which
for that.
what you're doing is so important. And I know it feels like teardrops in a huge ocean of water not making a difference, but every teardrop leads to something. Every step leads to something. Every meaningful contribution works towards something. And
Yeah.
it's so overwhelming in our world right now. It's easy to say, I just want to disappear and, um, curl up and sort of forget about things. But every small thing can lead to bigger things, and I think we got to just keep going.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Honestly. Yeah. So, what's next for you and your career? Is there another book on the way?
Well, every time I finish one, I think I'm done. But in Fugitive Rifts, there's this minor character named Alice, and she's a mystery. And she has no recollection of her life before she found herself on the streets of Vancouver. And part of her world gets resolved. She's on a good way forward. But she haunted me because I kept thinking, what did happen to her that she doesn't remember? So I'm about 10,000 words into exploring that, and we'll see what happens.
Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen. Here it comes. Alice, right? Is on the way.
Alice, yeah. Yeah, and it may
Yeah,
be.
Alice is about to do a solo.
I, I think she's going to have to rely on people. She's been solo for a long time, but unlike the other ones that are, my other books are about um, groups of people working together. This will be Alice discovering her life. The various
Nice.
pieces of Alice's life might be the title. It's the working title.
Yeah, yeah. I got to ask one more thing. Are you completely self-published?
I'm self published for all three books. Like all publishers, I contract editors, book designers, inside designers, people that help me get it out there. I've been given, so I've contracted through the services of Friesen Press for each of their books. Um, and they have given me stellar service. And it's like any other publisher. I'm looking for relationships over the long term and people I can count on at a high caliber. I'm quite exacting in what I want to see, and they live up to it. Um, and rather than having to go to a whole bunch of different individuals, it's funneled through, and I have a team there that handles things for me. So
Okay.
self-published. It takes such a long time to break into traditional publications, and at my age, I don't have that time. So
Yeah, no,
I'm doing
no,
the self-published.
yeah, no, 100%. And what would you say, because you come from an academic background and now you're writing sci-fi, what would you say to an author who's listening right now out there in the world, who's in the same situation? What's the first step you would tell them to take to make that transition that helped you?
The first step is to open your laptop to a whole different page than your academic writing. And the second stage is to get out of um, your your logical side of the brain and transfer over to your creative side of the brain, um, and live the lives of your characters rather than observing them like a scientist.
Yeah, it's moving. I love that. I love everything you've been saying here. You know, you're moving from the left brain to the right brain to write
Yeah,
your story. Yeah,
yeah,
that's what you have to do. And we're not telling listeners it's going to be easy, but that's what you need to do. You know,
it
you
isn't.
just need to
It
lock
isn't.
out the left, let your creative juices just flow, and you take it from there. You know, leave
That's
the
right.
left side of the brain when it comes to actually getting the book out to the public. Right?
Exactly. Exactly. You have to be very strategic about that. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and part and The other thing I'd say is keep going. And if it's really a wild ride and you have wacky things, keep it in because you never know where that's going to lead you. My characters talk to me all the time, and I'm a pantster. And when I thought that I knew what was going to happen, they took me like big curves.
Yeah.
I could never trust what I thought was going to happen is the way the book would unfold.
Nice, nice. No, thanks for sharing that that advice and that knowledge. So, Anne Marie, where can people find you online?
I have a website. It's AM Mawhiney. That little funny symbol should be an M. Um, www.ammawhiney.ca. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Threads, Instagram as at AMMAWHINEY. Um, and my books are available in 50,000 bookstores all over the world. You'd probably
Wow.
have to you probably have to order them because they're not going to be on shelves in too many places. But I have had people buying them from different parts of the world, including India, the UK, Germany, Australia, New Zealand. I haven't seen any from Africa yet, any of the African countries, but who knows?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you about one thing. Um, African countries, or let me put it down to South Africa. Majority of the population are taking their time to get on to things. Generally speaking, I look at my podcast network, which includes 3 podcasts at the moment. It's more for the international. you know Even with my music, it's more international. That's where my community is. Like, I got a shot this week. I had an entrepreneur slash author, independent, and a PR agency based in South Africa that I've never heard about because I've never focused in South Africa itself,
Mhm.
reaching out to me, telling me, that we've listened to a couple of your shows and would you be interested in interviewing our guests? So I'm thinking to myself, here's the agency name. Let me go out to Google, just check who they are. And I got a shock of my life. They're based in South Africa. And I'm like, what? You know, like,
Yeah.
is this for real now? Are we finally getting the bigger picture here now? On what I'm building. So it's slowly getting there. Slowly getting there. Where, look, I'm trying to get, you know not only first world but third world countries on board. But it's also difficult, and I say this, and I'm pushing the local media to get this article out, because currently at the moment, and it's a shocking number, and I actually wrote a blog about it. I think it was 73%, let's just say between 70 to 73% of the South African population that doesn't have reliable internet. That's
Yes.
concerning for me. That is concerning for me. So I sort of also get it when, people in Africa can't get onto the internet because they can't listen to such a podcast. They can't learn about Anne Marie. They can't,
No.
go online to purchase their book. They don't know what Amazon is. They don't know that Amazon does have credibility, that it can be trusted. They don't, they don't have access to go on and self educate themselves. And these things become concerning for me, and I make a big noise about it wherever I can. So, you know, that's where we are at the moment, if I can speak about South Africa and Africa in general.
Yes, I spent a few weeks in Cape Town 10 years ago, and I mean it's a beautiful country, like very beautiful country. Um but I'm somewhat at a superficial level aware of the challenges. And when I made the comment about no sales in Africa, I'm very much aware that it's even difficult to get books, to afford books in some places, and let alone access our discussion today. It's just not the day-to-day realities for many, many people. I spent a few weeks in Cape Town, and we went up into an area a bit north where there were pictographs and orange orange plantations. Um, but I'm aware of some of the challenges for a lot of people to access books and even to be able to afford them, and the lack of infrastructure with the internet. Um, it's a beautiful country. I have some spectacular photographs of the landscape. Um, and we were visiting friends who spend summer times there. They're both professors, and they had somebody wanting to meet with them, a charity that was within one of the townships. And we were invited to go along with them. And you get to see the wide inequality of the conditions people live in. But it was a really important part of my travel experiences to have spent time there.
Yeah. And you know what? It's sad to think that, 10 years later, there still hasn't been much development, with all that we witness. But all we can do is the work that we all do individually. The world itself is a beautiful place.
Yes.
And by us working together with decentralized systems such as a podcast for communication, that's how we slowly make these changes. Because if we depend on the system and we depend on the government, and this is my opinion, we're never going to fix those issues. So we have to work out the system to make those changes and make life better for people. And we keep going, all right?
Yes.
We keep going.
Yes. Because we
Yeah.
must.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Anne-Marie, thank you so much. This has been a really phenomenal, insightful, empowering, inspirational conversation. And I wish you all the best, with Alice and the next book and the books to come after that. You don't seem like you're stopping anytime soon, and that's good. That's good, keep going, because the world does need your material and does need you. And I never say goodbye on any of my shows. I always say check you later, because we just never know where we will meet again soon in the future to come.
I feel the same way. And let's hope our paths cross again. I'd like that.
Yes. Yeah, me too. But Anne-Marie, please enjoy the rest of your day and enjoy the weekend to come, and catch you later.
Catch you later. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye.